Alright, welcome back. It's Cult of Elections, and I'm back with another video that is sure to cause absolutely no controversy. Yes, today we're predicting the 2024 presidential map. Boom, there's my mouse. Actually, it's going to go away for a second. Boom, there's my mouse. Okay, so I want you to notice something on the top. I originally wanted to pick generic Democrat versus generic Republican, but I ultimately decided with Biden versus not Trump. Yeah, I know there could be a better way to go about this, but as of right now, this election's kind of weird. I will do a separate video detailing what I think will happen with different candidates, but this is just what I see for now. As per usual, let's fill in the safe Democratic states. So, I'm going to skip a few and just talk about them a little bit later. Yes, 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 yes. And, okay. So yeah, we are missing... Oh, I'm sorry. We're missing a lot of stuff that people would normally characterize safe Democratic. And I'm going to start with New York, which I actually am also going to categorize safe Democratic. New York went... I'll be straight up. It was part of a Republican wave in 2022. However, I think that has to do a lot with the top lines. They had a incumbent governor, which was unelected, against a very, very good Republican candidate who brought the Senate race with Chuck Schumer, of all people, into the likely margin, moving multiple House races into the Republican margin. But I think that lasts with the top line, so I'm going to leave New York in safe. However, some certain shifts that I could see happening: Delaware and Oregon into likely Democratic. Now, you may think it's crazy, but I mean, shifts happen. Look at the political landscape, I don't know, let's just say 14 years ago. Now, the map has a solid base of what it was, but it's not exactly the same, and you know, realistically, it's just going to happen. Talk about trends from 2022 I think might continue. I think Illinois could potentially, not solidly, but I'm thinking hovering around the high 14s, pushing it into the likely Democrat column as well. You know, I didn't see talking about much of Delaware. Okay, so Delaware straight up moved into likely Democratic in 2022. If Republicans put up someone not named Donald Trump, that could just easily stay the same. So there you go. You got your typical safe Democratic seats. And okay, let's throw Maine's first congressional district in there too. Yes. Okay. So, moving on that. Safe Republican seats. Now, I think we're going to go back to seeing the same of prior to the 2016 election. It's going to look very, very, very similar to what it once was. Of course, a few holdouts I will get to. I'm sorry. There we go. I will hold out... Yes, I'll hold out these. I think Alaska would remain. Besides the House race, there's not really a sign of it moving. I think the House race is a bit of an anomaly. But you could thank their Sarah Palin for that. That's completely on her. But the House for Alaska is probably going to stay in Democratic hands for a long time. Simply put. South Carolina, Trump had a huge effect on it moving in the likely column in 2020, but I think it moves back, as well as Missouri. It could go either way. I think this could also go likely. It's been a bit of a teetering one. And you know, nah, I'll keep it safe for now. But I think it could easily go likely. So let's move on to some more likely Democratic states. I think the shift in Colorado, at this point, it seems like it's permanent. They had pretty much a liberal Republican running for the Senate there, and he didn't even come close to winning. They have a popular governor who won re-election as well. It's just, yeah, it seems permanent. And let me see, Lauren Boebert, who's a character in her own right, almost losing her seat in the House. That possibly the top lines play a part in that, or maybe she did. Well, she definitely played a little part in it as well. And then, yeah, probably an obvious one, New Mexico, I think will remain unlikely. I think it's going to go to the low likely. It's not as Democratic as people might think. And it's one that I think could be a dark horse that could shift right, but we don't see the full evidence for that yet. And overall, it's probably not going to happen. Moving on. And there's some ones that might break some people's hearts here. Depending on how you lean, I think Michigan has moved back into the likely column. And it might make your heart if you believe in that, but I think Michigan has moved back into the likely column. I think Trump brought out a specific kind of voter here that may not come out in an election without him. But that's not necessarily to say that it could, be lean or even tilt red again. Who even knows? This is just completely generic, not Trump versus Biden. And we've seen a midterm with Biden as president in Michigan, and it stayed in Democratic hands. There wasn't really much of a Republican wave, if anything, that hit Michigan. If anything, it was more of a Democratic wave. And then I think New Hampshire, I just think at this point the writing's on the wall. Hey, it's something that a lot of people want it to be a swing state, but it just doesn't seem like at the moment. But again, a lot can change in 2 years. And then finally, I have Maine at large being likely Democratic. Oh my gosh, I just realized I went this long without categorizing DC. Sorry. If anyone's actually watching through this whole video, then yeah, that's yeah, no, I'm not categorizing that anything else. Yeah, so we do have some interesting holdouts here. We have Minnesota, we have Virginia, and I promise I will get back to those. So let's move to like Republican seats. So states that were a little bit rock solid when Trump ran the second time. Ohio and Iowa. Sorry, I said those kind of backwards. Yeah. There's really no reason to believe it'll be the other way around. In a sort of disappointing, midterm election for Republicans, they still carried Ohio well. Iowa, same way. Chuck Grassley probably should have won by more, but perhaps people were thinking that he's getting a bit too old, which is true. There's a lot of people way too old to be in Congress. And he is one of them. And it's definitely in both parties. But if you look at the race with Kim Reynolds, there's no reason to believe that Iowa's going to have a sudden shift. There's just no reason. Now, talk about states that did have a sudden shift. Absolutely Florida. It was safe R in 2022. I don't think it's going to quite have that same effect in 2024 presidential race. Perhaps it could happen if Ron DeSantis was the candidate, but of course I'm going with a generic non-Trump candidate here. And at the same time, based on what I saw from Beto O'Rourke in Texas, and let me make sure I get these numbers right. Yes, so Texas was just barely likely with Trump running in 2020. So, in my honest opinion, I think it's going to stay in the likely column as long as you don't have a candidate that is Trump or like Trump running. And, you know, I guess it'll be a bit of a spoiler for my if Trump runs video. I think Texas would move further and then go into the lean column with him on the ticket. And, you know, I guess we can move on to a state that Trump had won in 2020, North Carolina. Again, there's really no reason to believe that it'll move in the other direction based on the midterms, based on Trump's second time going. It did move further left between 2016 and 2020, but it wasn't enough, and it just doesn't seem like it'll move further. Possibly even with him on the top. So, let's move on to Minnesota and Virginia. I think in Minnesota, the governor's race, considering this year, it could have, should have been a lot closer than it was. I think Minnesota could move back into the lean column like it was in 2016. If I'm not mistaken, let me get these numbers right. Biden carried it by 7.1% in 2020. If you can't kind of tell, in most areas of this, I have it moving back to the right. And this is kind of based on the 2022 midterms. I think based on that, it'll swing. Not hard enough to go, 7.5 points to the right for it to be tilt, but yeah. And Virginia, this is going to be a very generic answer, but I think the Glenn Youngkin effect will have something. There was a slight, very slight, Republican wave in Virginia. Maybe it could have gone more, but I think it's enough to move it back into the lean margin. Glenn Youngkin did win here against a largely unproblematic candidate. That's not to say I think Virginia will go red in 2024, which as of right now, just about no chance. But yeah, there you go with that. So, we've got a whole host of interesting states left, and I'll start out with the ones that will probably be least interesting. And I'm categorizing this completely based on how they vote in their congressional House races. So, yes, Nebraska's second goes red, and I think Trump had an effect in Maine's 2nd district, but a lot of other Republicans wouldn't have that same effect. So, and it's very tentative. I would categorize it as Democrat. Ick. So, we have a lot of people's favorite states, and of course, what do you know? The most interesting states in terms of the Senate election in 2022. So, based on what I saw here. Ooh, here we go. Based on what I saw in these elections, I think Pennsylvania goes lean Democratic. I can say this for a few reasons. Dr. Oz, while people tried to paint him to be problematic, he really wasn't so much. They pushed a lot of not so great scandals, and he lost. Simply put, he lost. And Fetterman, there was a lot of concern about his health, but he still won. So, yes, the one thing you can say about that is that the New Jersey thing, and I think that played a part in Fetterman's win, of course, but yeah, I think it would carry over to this. So we have 4 states, and if Democrats win any one of these besides Nevada, then it would carry them over the 270 mark needed to win. Whew, here we go. I will start. Yeah, these are all way too interesting. I guess I'll start with the one that's slightly the most least interesting. I think Wisconsin goes tilt red. And I've told you I don't like using the tilt margin because it's not super common, but I think it would happen here. Ron Johnson is a conservative Republican in a lean blue / purple state. He still won election. I know a lot of Republicans hate Tony Evers as governor there, but really he's not a much hated governor, and he didn't carry it very strongly over there. So yes, Wisconsin tilt red. And oh man, I don't even know how to preface these states, because I think when I'm going to categorize them, it's going to trigger some things in people's brains. I think that based on what I saw, if we have not Donald Trump winning, and we have a good solid candidate, I'm not talking about like Carrie Lake or Blake Masters or something, which I thought were poor candidate choices. I think Arizona could come back into the hands of Republicans. But it's like I said, it's going to take no Trump, not someone like Blake Masters, not someone like Carrie Lake, which are like Trump in a lot of ways. It's going to take something like that. If not, then just as easy I can categorize this the other way. And that leaves, of course, probably the tightest of these races in terms of the Senate in 2022. Nevada and Georgia. And Nevada, based on the governorship, if you get a decent candidate in there, it's possible. It can go lean Republican. It's been proven. I didn't think it was possible, or not very possible, in my videos 2 years ago before I came back. But I've seen it. It's got to take someone solid. And I don't think it will go any further than lean Republican. But it needs to take someone solid. And finally, to decide the election, suspense. If we take someone, for example, Ron DeSantis or Glenn Youngkin, we will see a red Georgia. Yes, a Republican victory. Reason for red Georgia is, simply put, black turnout was way down in the 2022 midterms. But you might be thinking, Raphael Warnock still got a good margin. Yes, and this is because of the suburbs. Suburbs went far away from Herschel Walker compared to Brian Kemp. And if you take someone who's not that kind of candidate, problematic, it could win the suburbs back, like Brian Kemp did. So there you have it. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think I should go back to doing specific candidates. But other than that, that is all I have. Until next time, peace.